mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, imagine building an entire city, right? Like an entire economy and a whole culture around a single highly predictable event, the arrival of snow.
Right.
But then, imagine waking up one morning in May to find out that the snow simply isn't coming back, like at all.
Yeah, it's a massive shock to the system.
It really is. So, welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We are so glad you could join us. Today is Memorial Day, May 25, 2026. And our mission for you today is to synthesize this, frankly, fascinating stack of sources to understand how massive, complex systems they're being forced to pivot abruptly under extreme pressure.
Yeah, and the stack of materials we're working with today, it's incredibly diverse. I mean, we're looking at federal emergency declarations, national news wires, some highly specific municipal and meteorological data out of the Eagle River Valley in Colorado.
What is wild data, by the way?
Oh, absolutely wild. We've also got Wall Street financial ledgers and even internal production blueprints from a local media outlet. So it really gives us this true cross-section of American infrastructure,
Yeah.
analyzing everything from the highest levels of government down to local fire departments and corporate balance sheets.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at the stack of sources, I was initially pretty confused.
Oh, sure.
Because you have the President of the United States speaking at Arlington National Cemetery on one page, and then, local town ledgers in Colorado on the next.
Right, it seems disjointed.
Yeah, exactly. But reading deeper, I realized there is a very clear, very urgent through line connecting all of this. I mean, every single one of these entities, whether it's the federal government or a ski town, they're realizing that the old calendar, the predictable way things used to run, it's fundamentally gone.
Yeah. That tension is it's palpable across every single document here. And the most vivid place to see that macro level shift is by looking at the national news wires from this morning. You have this intense juxtaposition. So on one hand, you have the deeply historical weight of Memorial Day, right? President Trump delivered the National Memorial Day address at Arlington National Cemetery today, and it was heavily focused on the upcoming 250th anniversary of American independence.
Yeah, the reporting notes that the speech highlighted, the profound human cost of military service. But it also ventured into some very heavy global issues.
It did, yeah.
Like, the sources mentioned discussions around defense postures regarding nuclear proliferation and specific references to Operation Epic Fury against Iranian forces.
Right, some very intense geopolitical realities. And actually, just as a quick aside for you listening, our goal today isn't to validate the politics or the policies of the administration, right?
Right.
Or to take sides on geopolitical conflicts like Operation Epic Fury.
Exactly. We are entirely impartial here. We are just reporting the contents of these national news wires to you. We're not endorsing any political viewpoints or taking sides. We are purely conveying the geopolitical facts as they are provided in the sources.
Exactly. Our job is to show you how the gears are turning today, not to tell you who should be operating the machine.
Right. Beautifully put. Which brings us back to that machinery. Because while this deeply traditional, highly scripted ceremony is happening at Arlington, a simultaneous real-time crisis is unfolding on the other side of the country.
Yes, a massive one.
Yeah. President Trump also approved a federal emergency declaration for Orange County, California, due to a severe chemical release that began a few days ago on May 21st.
And the scale of the response required there is just massive. I mean, the declaration authorizes FEMA to provide emergency protective measures, which brings in heavy federal funding, specifically 75% federal funding under the leadership of Mark O'Hanlon.
Wow, 75%. That's huge.
It's a huge injection of resources. And at the state level, California Governor Gavin Newsom has mobilized over 785 emergency personnel just to coordinate the initial hazmat response.
Looking at these two events happening at the exact same moment, it really reminds me of a massive computer operating system handling vastly different background processes at once.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, the Arlington ceremony is like a scheduled task, right? It requires a lot of memory, sure, but it's highly choreographed, it's predictable, the code hasn't changed in decades, the system knows exactly how to run it.
Right. It just executes the script.
Exactly. But the Orange County chemical spill, that is a massive hardware interrupt. The system has to instantly suspend normal operations, reroute all its active RAM, and just throw everything it has at triage to prevent a total system failure.
What's fascinating here is that analogy perfectly illustrates the administrative mechanisms at play. What is compelling to observe in these sources is how the underlying code of emergency management bridges the federal and state levels, completely bypassing the political theater.
It just happens mechanically.
It's exactly. You have a federal agency, FEMA, instantly locking gears with Governor Newsom's state-level personnel. The system triages the crisis because it mechanically has to. The environment, it just doesn't care about the political calendar in Washington.
No, it really doesn't. But that forced triage isn't just a federal phenomenon, right? It's a physical reality when environments change faster than our infrastructure can handle. And that survival instinct is trickling all the way down to local municipalities.
It really is.
Like, look at what is happening to the water cycle in the Eagle River Valley in Colorado. The meteorological data from this region completely upends the expected calendar.
Oh, the numbers coming out of the Eagle Valley are structurally terrifying for anyone managing municipal resources.
Yeah.
In late April, local basins hit a 0th percentile snowpack baseline.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to pause on that term. When I first read 0th percentile in the sources, my brain just translated it to, a really bad winter.
Right, like maybe it didn't snow much in February or something.
Yeah. But it's much worse than that, isn't it? Mathematically, statistically, it means this is the absolute worst snowpack baseline in the modern recorded history of the area. Like, there is literally no historical precedent lower than this.
None. It is an absolute lack of moisture. And to understand the mechanics of why this matters, you have to look at how a mountain hydrology system is actually supposed to work.
Right.
Snowpack acts as a massive frozen reservoir. As it slowly melts throughout the spring and early summer, it provides a steady, metered release of water that keeps the soil damp and the vegetation hydrated.
It's nature's slow-release watering system.
Exactly. But when you hit a 0th percentile, that frozen reservoir simply isn't there. The transition from winter to spring just evaporates, leaving the ground dangerously exposed and creating this massive hydrological deficit.
Which forces human institutions to structurally change how they operate. And you can see this clearly with the Vail Fire Department. So, on May 15th, Fire Chief Mark Novak officially retired. And in the wake of his departure, facing this, 0th percentile drought, the fire department is entirely abandoning its traditional seasonal model.
Yeah, because historically, a mountain fire department staffs up for a defined fire season, right? Which typically hits in late summer or fall.
Right, when things dry out.
Right. They hire seasonal crews, they prep specific equipment, and they run on this predictable calendar. But because the snowpack reservoir failed, the soil is critically dry in May, so the department is being forced to establish a permanent year-round wildfire suppression strategy.
Year-round?
Yeah. The very concept of an off-season is just being permanently deleted from their operational manual.
And we aren't just talking about a shift in paperwork or scheduling here. The physical, tactical approach on the ground is changing drastically. Like, in the Edwards Core area of the valley, emergency crews are literally deploying autonomous robotic mowers.
The RC mower.
The RC mower.
The deployment of that RC mower is a direct mechanical adaptation to a hostile environment. The terrain in the high country around Edwards is incredibly steep. It's rugged. And under normal historical conditions, that vegetation would stay damp enough in the spring to be manageable, or at least slow to burn.
But not at a 0th percentile.
Right. Right now, it is essentially tinder. So it is simply too dangerous to send manual human crews up those sheer inclines with, like, weed whackers and chainsaws.
Oh, sure, if a spark flies.
Exactly. The risk of a spark or a crew getting trapped by a fast-moving brush fire on a cliff face, it's just too high. So they remove the human liability entirely. They send in these autonomous robots with specialized treads to grind down the combustible fuels.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If a community is so incredibly dry and the environment is so dangerously combustible in May, right?
Yep.
A month that the local calendar usually reserves for like mud season or late spring skiing, if they are literally sending autonomous robots to mow the mountainsides just to prevent the town from burning down, hasn't the fundamental premise of a mountain ski resort completely broken down? I mean, what are they even selling to tourists at this point?
Yeah, that is the existential question at the heart of all this data. You are watching the collapse of an economy built on a specific climate reality.
Wow.
When a town's entire identity and financial structure rely on the predictable arrival of snow, and the snow stops arriving, the municipality just can no longer afford to rely on seasonal calendars. They aren't managing a ski season anymore. They're managing an ongoing, permanent ecological crisis.
That is wild. And, when the physical environment fractures like that, it inevitably takes the financial bedrock down with it. If
Absolutely.
the snow is gone, the tourists don't come, and the capital just starts bleeding out. Let's look at the corporate parent anchoring all this infrastructure, Vail Resorts. They trade under the ticker symbol MTN.
Yeah, the reality of that 0th percentile snowpack is glaringly obvious in the Wall Street ledgers from our sources today. So MTN stock opened today at $127.81.
Ouch.
Yeah, which places it near the absolute lower boundary of its 52-week range. And Wall Street analysts, they're clearly spooked by this. The consensus rating right now is a very cautious hold. You've got 3 analysts saying sell, 6 saying hold, and only 5 saying buy.
And the mechanism behind that fear, the reason for those ratings, is the drop in actual human foot traffic. Skier visits across Vail Resorts declined by 14.9%.
That is massive.
Right, that isn't just a slight dip. That represents a drop of 6 million skier visits across the Rocky Mountain West.
6 million.
Yeah. Think about the cascading effect of 6 million fewer people buying lift tickets, renting hotel rooms, paying for flights, and eating at local restaurants.
Right, it creates this massive vacuum in year-over-year revenue, which dropped 4.7% to just over $1.08 billion. And they missed their earnings per share targets across the board. The estimate was $6.06, but they came in at $5.87.
Which is a big miss for a company like that.
It is. But you know what? The top-line revenue drop isn't actually what should be making corporate boards sweat the most.
Really? What is?
The most alarming metric we found in these ledgers, the one signaling deep, long-term systemic stress, is their dividend payout ratio. Currently, Vail Resorts' dividend payout ratio is sitting at 144.86%.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of why a 144% payout ratio is a glaring red flashing light for investors.
Please do.
Because a dividend is essentially the cash reward a company pays you for holding their stock, right? So if the payout ratio is 144%, mechanically, that means for every single dollar of net income the company actually generates, they're paying out $1.44 to their shareholders.
Yeah, they're literally bleeding more cash than they are bringing in.
Exactly.
And to maintain that dividend, to keep their major institutional investors from just dumping the stock and triggering a total collapse, the company is forced to either take on massive amounts of debt or rapidly cannibalize their own cash reserves.
So they are essentially eating their own future just to keep shareholders from revolting today.
Precisely. It is a highly unsustainable financial posture. And it severely limits their ability to adapt. I mean, if you are draining your cash reserves to pay dividends, you don't have the capital required to pivot your business model when the environment violently changes, like when the snow stops falling.
Right. Which brings up a really critical question about the people who actually live and work in these communities. Because when the core economic engine of your town is misfiring this badly, when snow is entirely gone, the tourists have stayed home, and the corporate overlords are cannibalizing their own cash reserves, how does a community actually hold itself together culturally? What prevents the social fabric from just tearing apart?
The answer to that is beautifully illustrated in the final set of sources we have today. It's an internal production blueprint for a local media outlet, Eagle Valley News, and their program Vailychat.
It is so rare to get a literal blueprint for how a community is trying to talk to itself during a crisis.
It really is. And look at the specific creative and technical choices the producers made for this Memorial Day broadcast. In a premier luxury resort town, you might expect a slick, high-gloss corporate studio broadcast, to project stability.
Right. Suits and ties, bright lights.
Exactly. But instead, they designed a lifestyle promo closing scene set in a private backyard patio overlooking the mountains.
Yeah, and the technical directions for this shoot are incredibly intentional. They're bypassing the sterile, brightly lit news desk entirely. They are shooting at blue hour, that specific window of early nightfall, and using warm, practical lighting like string lights and the glow of a fire pit.
They also specified using a Sony FX6 camera with a 50mm anamorphic lens, employing a shallow cinematic focus. And the mechanism of that lens choice is crucial here.
How so?
By using a shallow focus, the camera mechanically blurs out the background and forces the viewer's eyes squarely onto the anchor's face. It strips away the emotional distance of a traditional broadcast, right? And it creates a subconscious feeling of intimacy and trust. It mimics the visual experience of sitting right across a fire pit from a friend.
Oh, wow. And the audio design plays right into that psychology, too. They call for the sound of a crackling fire, distant evening wind, and a subtle Americana guitar instrumental. And the dialogue delivered by the anchors, Victor, Allie, and Donnie, it's completely stripped of corporate gloss. It's just a soft, sincere sign-off. The script just says, "From all of us, we hope you have a safe and peaceful Memorial Day weekend. From our family to yours."
The blueprint itself actually notes the intended viewer psychology here. The goal is to leave viewers with emotional warmth, strengthen audience trust, and reinforce the sense of a connected local community. They are intentionally engineering understated sincerity.
It makes complete sense. It's like circling the wagons, you know?
Oh, totally.
When the corporate gloss fades, when the stock price plummets, and the physical environment feels hostile and dangerously dry, people don't want a teleprompter telling them the economy is fine.
No, they don't buy it.
Right. They crave authentic, unpolished human connection. They want to see their neighbors sitting around a fire pit weathering the storm together. It's a community relying on its emotional infrastructure because the economic infrastructure is actively fracturing.
Exactly. It proves that while a town's economy might be built on snow and stock prices, its actual resilience, its ability to survive a crisis, is built on trust and familiarity. The local media team recognized that their audience didn't need another data point today. They needed reassurance that the community itself was still intact.
So what does this all mean when we pull back and look at the whole picture?
Well, if we synthesize this entire journey for you listening, from the Arlington National Cemetery all the way to autonomous robotic mowers in Edwards and a 144% dividend payout ratio, today's sources paint a very stark picture.
Yeah, they do.
We're watching massive human systems desperately trying to adapt to the collapse of the expected calendar. Whether it is a federal agency instantly pivoting to manage a chemical spill, a local fire department abandoning its seasonal schedule to fight fires in May, or a media outlet leaning into raw authenticity over corporate polish, the underlying mechanism is the same. It's survival through rapid real-time adaptation.
The old playbooks are being completely thrown out because the seasons they were written for simply do not exist anymore. The machinery has to change because the environment already has.
Which leaves us with a final, rather profound thought for you to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
If a permanent, year-round wildfire season, constant hazmat-level emergency postures, and massive corporate dividend debt loads become the permanent new normal, will future mountain towns have to completely divorce their identity and their economy from the concept of winter entirely just to survive?
Man, that is a heavy question, but it feels like the exact right one to be asking based on the realities we've explored today. I mean, it fundamentally challenges what these communities are at their core and what they will have to become. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it unpacking these incredible systemic shifts with us. Keep questioning the systems around you and keep asking the big questions. We'll see you next time.